Alright, so welcome back, or welcome if you're new. Obviously, I've had a little bit of a hiatus between issues with the game and family and just work in general. It's been kind of a hectic couple of months. But we're back today with the Misc Fortune. Um, so basically, Prospector chassis changed up. Got rid of the bags, added some cargo grids. Ironically, two salvage stations rather than one, and yet only one salvage head. We actually have a little bit of a cargo area. My understanding is I think this holds four, I believe. Might be two. I haven't actually tried to put any cargo on the grid, but it does apparently have a grid. Let's see, components. You got your normal stuff. You got the coolers, shields. Moving on here, we've got your actual salvage, one of your salvage stations here. Quick note, if you do put it into auto eject, then once you start salvaging, it should kick them out automatically. So make sure you hit those when you go in. Farther up along here, we've got just where you can see out the windows. Obviously the grids block it, but we've got more systems here that aren't really in effect yet, like the gravity gen. The access point there, obviously gravity gen's not in there. And I got life support and radar, either one of which are functional yet. And then another shield, your computer. Obviously one bunk, so obviously a little bit different than the Prospector, but the same for the most part. Water dispenser that doesn't work yet. Be nice when those work yet. Fuse relay here, engineering terminal. Not functioning, obviously. Exit to the ship. Bathroom, obviously. You're all in one. And if you're familiar with the Prospector, the layout should look pretty much the same once we get it up here. I will say they've actually done a pretty good job with it. It looks pretty crisp, pretty clean. So, not too bad. Alright, so flight characteristics are going to be pretty similar to the Prospector if you're familiar with that. Roughly the same SCM speed, the same nav speed. Unlike a lot of them, since there's really not much to the ship, we're going to go ahead and do this, and then we're going to go ahead and take it out and do some salvage. So, exit the ship, pretty much just like the Prospector. You can get back in from there, but it's really, really small. Alright, so like I said, pretty much like the Prospector, spec-wise. 140 something max SCM speed, well, cruising speed. Obviously you can boost a little higher. Radar scanning, all that fun stuff, pretty much the same. Again, for those that don't know, if you're doing salvage, salvage will pop up in multiples 2000, so 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. Those are typically going to be salvage panels, and each panel is going to be roughly about 2000. So if you see 10,000, you should have 5 panels. Like in this particular case here, we've got 4. You can see these 3 across the top and 1 down below. Salvage wise, works pretty much just like the Vulture, except you got 1 head instead of 2. So it is going to be a little bit slower. I went ahead and changed the cinch out for an abrade, just because I didn't want to be here all day. Although the cinch will give you better efficiency as far as how much it pulls, the abrade will do it faster without quite as much efficiency. Like you use just a little bit. Um, how obviously you go about it is up to you. I usually kind of go up and down. Sometimes I go side to side. Just depends on the mood. But basically, the gist of it is you want to get everything off of it you can. Um, I'm typically, well, currently, I'm actually salvaging out of Rune Station. Um, if you're going to do that, you need to make sure you go about 200 kilometers from the station so that you're not jumped by NPCs or other players. That's usually pretty good, safe distance. Used to be about 100, 100 and a quarter, but it's since gone to where if you're within that 150 range, you might have a chance of getting hit by an NPC. So, um, salvaging, I mean, what can you say? It's tedious to watch. Obviously, you're busy while you're doing it, but and I'm not going to make you sit through all of these panels. We'll probably do this panel, and then I'll skip ahead through parts of the next ones. Mainly just so you can see the mechanics of how it looks from the cockpit when you fill up. Because, of course, we have auto eject set up. So, and the way it works is each one of those salvage stations in the back is going to kick out to their specific side. So you'll be able to kick out 6 on each side, and then you can fill the buffer for roughly a total of 25 SCU. Theoretically, if you really wanted to, you could grab a couple off, throw them back in the elevator cargo area. Like either 2 or 4, like I said, I don't remember. I don't really see a need to do that because part of the whole aspect of this is not having to get up like you do with the Vulture. So having to run outside the ship and unload to get it into the cargo area kind of defeats the purpose. And obviously, the whole point is to make as much as fast as possible. I mean, obviously you want to enjoy it, but if you're paying attention, you can actually see where the pillar station is ejecting now. So that will eject and then actually put it automatically on that side. Usually starts with one side and then the other. I believe it's the port side or left will actually fill up first, and then the starboard. At least that's been my experience. But I also had cases where I had to go back and flip the auto eject off and back on. So that could have been a contributing factor. Alright, so like I said, you're only using one salvage hit here, so it's obviously going to be a little bit slower. But it makes up for it in the unloading, because you don't have to worry about positioning the ship, stuff like that. You can literally just park in the middle and then just get out, tractor beam right off the side, kind of like you would like a Hull A. So it makes it easier to unload. Alright, and basically the way it's going to do it is every time it hits 1 SCU, it's going to kick a box out and put it on the side. Here later on I'll show you that mechanism, how that works, what it looks like. Obviously it's going to be kind of dark out here in Pyros, so it's going to be a little harder to see. But if you pay attention, you can actually see how it works. Alright. Now with the Vulture, I'd probably already be done with this panel. But again, the visibility, you don't have the arms out in front of you like you do on the Vulture. You don't have to worry about running into it, worry about the depth of how far you are from it. You know, there's a lot of a lot of caveats to it. So even though it's a little bit slower, overall in the scheme of things, you're probably not going to notice it. Because let's face it, the Vulture and the Fortune both just don't have enough capacity to make that much of a difference in speed. Now, if you're talking something the size of a reclaimer, having one salvage hit as compared to two, obviously that's a huge difference. But something that does less than 30, probably not going to be an issue. And you'll make up that time when you're unloading. So, and it also gives you the whole, like, I mean, you can put a little more in the Vulture, because let's face it, if you're not using the grid and you just throw everything in there as much as possible, you're going to actually be able to store about 23 to 25, 26 in the actual cargo hold, and then another 13 in the buffer. Whereas with this, even if the back elevator holds 4, you're going to be looking at 12 on the outside, 2 to 4 on the grid. Let's call it 4 just to be safe. So you're looking at 14 there, another 13 in the buffer, so now you're looking at 27. So I mean, there's a little bit of a difference. You're talking like 30 capacity of up to 39 as compared to a capacity up to 27. So I mean, there's a big difference there, but you also don't have to get out of your seat regularly. So, which I know some people were clamoring for. That's what they wanted. They didn't want to have to run down the ladder and move boxes around and get back up and salvage more and then do it again. And now you don't have to. And even if you do, there's no ladder to have to worry about. You just run back to the salvage station, clear whatever error there is, and continue on. So it's kind of an each to his own thing. You might like the Fortune, you might like the Vulture, you might like both, you might like neither. But that's the options we have at the moment. So I think they've kind of given a kind of a well-rounded selection with just 2 ships. I mean, obviously, for those that have had the Vulture since the get-go, we're used to, back in the day when there was no buffer, and you were literally just getting up every time you turn around, every 2 boxes to eject and stack. So even the buffer alone was a game changer. And then obviously now with not even having to get out of the seat with the Fortune. All right, so as I said, tedious, so we're just going to go ahead and skip ahead till we're almost done. Now you'll notice it says filler station blocked. However, if I look outside, only one side is filled. But what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and continue to salvage, and then we'll take a look and see what the problem is. Because let's face it, realistically, it's not an issue until the buffer's almost full. Alright, so much like the Vulture, you have the tractor beam. So hold R and use your mouse wheel or your mouse to position it where you want it, and then you can go right click on your mouse and go back to scraping. And the handy little tooltips on the side will tell you as well. I usually leave them up when we're playing, when I'm doing these videos, just so people can see them. Obviously on your game you'll have them as well. Beam spacing is not an issue here because we only have the one beam. But I mean, as you can see, it's still not bad as far as speed goes. Now, obviously, if I was using the cinch, this would be a little bit slower. And if you're just starting out with one ship and not a lot of money, then you might have to forgo the cinch initially, or just wait until you can get somewhere and you can afford it. Don't get the abrade. But the cinch is not bad in itself. It's a little more efficient as far as it gets a lot more material. Well, it gets a little bit more material. The abrade's just a little faster, and you lose a little bit of the efficiency. So you'll take a little bit, you know, like minute loss, which I guess theoretically, if you looked at over time, if I do 12 trips and lose a little bit each time, it could add up. But is it really that much of a concern? Now, I would stay away from the trawler for the Vulture or the Fortune, just because it's a little excessive and you give up more. But again, each to his own. If you're just out there to scrape as fast as possible, get back to the station and sell, then you could probably put a trawler on there too. I haven't actually tried it because it seems like overkill on a ship this size. Now I do run them on the reclaimer, obviously, but that's a different scenario. Alright. So we'll get this panel knocked out, move on to the next one. As you can tell, we've got about 3 SCU in the buffer. So we'll let it build up some more. We'll probably just go ahead and finish all this panel and the 2 more that are left. And then we'll see if we can figure out what the problem was. And for the sake of expediency on the video, I'm just going to do the one patch here. Obviously, if I'm out to make money and I'm not making a video, I would actually stay out here until the fortune is filled, and then I would go back. Oh, sorry about that. Thought I silenced that. Alright, let's find these other 2 panels. Pretty sure that's the one we just did. And it's saying no material, so yep, there you go. Alright, so we've got one of them little shoulders, or one of those little covers, whatever you want to call them. We got one of those, and we got one of the diamond shapes left. Now, I do actually salvage in SCM mode. Some people do it in nav mode. You can do either. Nav mode is just a lot easier to run into stuff when you're flying. So it's a matter of preference. I'm not going to say you're right or wrong if you do either one. I prefer SCM. I know other people that prefer nav mode. Same thing with mining. I like having my shields. As you can tell, I've got pretty much everything into them. With pretty much nothing into weapons hardly, or engines. Because let's face it, I'm not outrunning anybody. But if I can take a few shots and get away, get into the asteroid field or something, then theoretically I might survive. And if you catch any of this sniffles, sorry. Getting over some weather here. Part of that whole family and work and everything else I was talking about. I've been feeling great for a week or so. Alright, so we'll go ahead and do this one and do the next one. And then we'll move on from there. Whole point of this is, obviously we covered what it looks like inside, where the components are. Wanted you to see how to actually use it, or how it works while you're using it, however you want to look at it. And then, like, you know, how the mechanism works to expel the salvage onto the grid, so forth. Alright, so that's the one I think, well, maybe not. That might be the one I haven't done yet. There we go. I haven't done that one yet. That's the last one of the four. Normally my go-to is yellow for salvage panels. Sorry about that. But I found one of my org mates actually told me about Rune Station and the belt around it, which is kind of like yellow, and quite frankly it works really well for salvage. Like I said, as long as you go at least 200 kilometers away from the station. There's just loads of panels out here, usually anywhere from 8 to 12 plus groupings, which it gives you, you know, 4 panels on up to like 6 or more. I think I've even seen one that was 24 panels. So, and again, it is pyro, so you do have to be careful. But as long as you're staying outside of the normal travel, and Rune Station is pretty much all the way across the system from Stanton Pyro Gateway. So, and there's really not, I mean, there's a little bit there as far as the planet, but most people aren't going to mess with it because it's slow traveling on it. I do still have some videos of mining on all the main planets in Pyro. I haven't finished it yet, editing it. Once I do that, I'll get it uploaded. Alright. Alright, so we've got 6 in there. Let's see what we can do here. Obviously it hasn't expelled it to the other side. Or ejected it, however you want to look at it. So we're going to go back and take a look here. Alright, so this side is the side that's not ejecting. And this side is obviously. You can tell that because it has the red box there. You can continue ejecting, nothing happens, and so forth. So leave that on. Alright. There we go. Alright, so apparently you just need a reset. Alright, so now it's starting to eject. We'll go get back in a seat and take a look and see how this works. Obviously you can't do the third person view on the ship from standing inside it. You gotta be in a seat. Alright, so here we are on the other side. And you can actually see right towards the back of the ship. You can see that door open, and then it pushes the box out. And obviously it's going to do that every time it ejects. Looks like it fills the top row first. Well, fills the first 2 stations there on the back. And then from there it fills the top. And then the bottom. And there you go. And we still ended up with just a not quite an SCU left over. So we've got 12 SCU on the grid. We'll go ahead and back to the station and get it unloaded. Like I said, if you're going to do this at Rune Station, make sure you start at about 200k away. and then basically burn into the station, and then switch to SCM and land. There are sometimes NPCs here, so just keep that in mind. Most of the time they don't mess with you, but I'm not going to say never, because I have been attacked before. I don't know if there's some kind of a range you have to get to them before they'll trigger on you or what. I almost say that one's on the other side of the station. You can tell it's an NPC because it has a space in the name between the first and last. So. Alright, watch for the debris. And we'll go ahead and get landed here and get unloaded. And I don't know why it does that. It seems to do it every time I come into the station here. It's almost like you hit something, but you didn't. Alright, we'll go ahead and land in the center of the pad here, and then I'll show you what it looks like to unload from here. Obviously, you could actually turn and face it, and then just stand over by the elevator too. But I figure I'll show you this way just because. Go ahead and refuel here. Anybody that knows me knows I like to refuel as soon as I land, unless I have Quantanium on board. I do love the visibility on the Fortune, much like the Prospector. There's just something to be able to be said that being able to see in front of you with nothing in the way. Now, obviously, with that being said, there are some drawbacks. Slower salvage time or scraping time. Doesn't hold quite as much. I mean, technically it does hold as much as the Vulture on paper because they both have the same size grid. But obviously, nobody uses just the grid on the Vulture. At least very few people I've ever seen. Obviously, if you're using the smaller tractor beam, you may not be able to do this. You might have to be closer. But I pretty much always have this the larger tractor beam. That's usually one of my first purchases when I start making money. Works for cargo, works for this. Just works in general. I find easiest way, just go right up over the ship and then put the box on the elevator. Obviously, once we get this side done, the other side will be easier. Alright, and that'll take care of that side. High-risk stations are definitely darker, but it is what it is. I usually start out in Stanton, that's what I prefer to, and then I'll usually bring one or two ships over here to do stuff. In this particular case, I come over here with the ES, and I came over here with the Fortune. Because, let's face it, got to make some money. Also, did the first stage of the pyro missions, the event, which was basically just cargo runs from the Stanton Gateway station to other places around there. I found the ES works really well for that, but you can use anything that has somewhere to about 5 or 6, at least 5 or 6 cargo capacity. You could even use a Fortune. I did actually put a Vulcan drive in here, so that gives me about 225 gigameters. So I can actually go across the system a couple of times before I have to refill. So keep that in mind. Obviously, it doesn't spool as fast and doesn't go as fast, so it takes me longer to get somewhere, but I don't have to stop for fuel as often, which in a place the size of Pyro is a big deal. You can actually get the signature on it down, like the RS, the infrared, all that. But I haven't worried too much about that yet. It does have, I think, a hotter profile than a Vulture, so you'll be able to be seen from farther away. Alright. And that is pretty much going to do it for this episode. If you have any questions or concerns, comments, let me know in the comments. If you liked it, please like and subscribe. And if there's something that I haven't covered that you're interested in, please let me know as well. Because I'm always looking for... the whole point of the channel is to help people learn the game. But other than that, have a good day.